two, two, what? No, it's part 6. You know what? I'm gonna leave that in. I don't give a fuck. Anyways, part 6. This one is going to be like about my first instance with like parental betrayal. Now, way back when I was really young, my mom ended up getting married to someone, and when I met him, I didn't like him. When like I looked at him and I was like, I don't like him in my head. But you know, as a kid, you're not allowed to have an opinion in Christianity or whatever the fuck I grew up in. And so, you know, I don't know if I actually verbalized it or gave any signs or anything like that, but whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm a kid. And I started to soften up as we got to like experience, you know, who this man was, because like he was African, full blood as far as I knew, African. And, you know, as melanated, can't say melanated people because we're all melanated. As an African American, born and raised, no connection to the culture whatsoever, uh, that was amazing. It was like being home. It was like being close to home. His sister was beautiful, and she was really loving, and his family seemed to like really accept us because when we went to whatever it was that whatever gathering that they had African food. And you know, it was new, so I was like, oh, I don't want to eat that. And they're like, you know, you have to at least try it. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. This was way before I was 8, by the way. And I still remember how that fucking food tastes. And I have not had African food since. So, I was just like, okay, this is cool. All the colors, like the vibrancy of the colors, the music, the way they dress, it was like all different. It was something completely different than what I experienced, and I wasn't the only, you know, melanated person in the room. Now, mind you, I did actually go to predominantly melanated school because you know they flag you for saying the B word, and they already been muted my videos. So at that time, but I also had experienced a lot of spaces where you know I was the only one because you know I was born in '93. That stuff was still fresh, and so yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be a part of it. And before I get into like the betrayal part of it, my first experience with like people not believing me was actually when we were all living in the same house together after they had gotten married. And I think this was after my baby brother was born or before, I don't remember. But there was a fish tank that we had gotten, and I loved the fish. I kept track of all of the fish. I had two. There was one that was silver, one that was gold. They looked exactly the same except for their colors. Well, I noticed the silver one is missing. So I watched the tank trying to look for it. We had these plants in there, the plastic plants. One of them was tangled up, the rest of them were just floating free, all apart and stuff. I spent a long time sitting at that tank. I would not move. I would not move from this tank until they untangled this plant, because they were like, no, that's not true. Like, it's not in there. There's no way it's in there. There was a silver fish. I look at this tank. I even said that. I look at this tank more than you do. You look at it to feed. I look at it all the time. And then they finally were like, she's not going to stop until we do it. So let's just do it to prove her wrong, and then we can all move on with our lives. Well, turns out the little thing just swims out there all week, and they have to get the net and hold it to the surface so that they could feed it because it hadn't had food in days. It ended up dying because nobody believed me the first time. I noticed it the first day. And yeah. And then I would use that as a later example of, you know, hey, remember when you didn't believe me about this and it ended up being true? And they're like, oh my God, yeah, but that's not true now, you know, that type shit. And it's just like, Okay, I guess I can't win. But anyways, beyond that, my first real experience with like betrayal or feeling betrayed, but now I have the words to say it versus when I was a kid, was we were watching The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and there was that point where the dude gets free and he's like, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, dang it. And I had watched this movie 1,000 times, and me and my mom, we would both go back and forth, like, repeating the thing. Like, it was a family thing. Even my aunt did it with us. Like, when she watched it with us, we all was like, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, dang it. We would just say it randomly. And so I had done it when we were watching it with him by ourselves in the house while my mom was at work. And he punished me for it. And y'all, if y'all know about like African punishments, they hit different, especially for a kid that is not African and is just like African American. So I had to stand behind the TV, look up at the clock on the wall, which is way too high, with my arms up for an undisclosed amount of time. Because I said dang it. And I was like, no, mom lets us say it. Mom always let us say it the whole time. And then when she like had come home, because by this point I don't know how long it had been because I had no concept of time. I was a kid. I just know my arms were hurting. I had come home, or she had come home, and I was not allowed to speak. And he told her why he had punished me. And she ended up passing by me and laughing. I'm trying not to fucking cry right now. And that broke me as a fucking kid, which is probably why I kept silent about everything else. And that was the first time. Aside from that, it was just my business continuously being told behind my back and being criticized and being a topic of gossip behind everybody, like with everybody else. And, you know, it was extremely painful for me as a kid to see her laugh at me over something that we had all done as a family before he got there. And that was when my hatred, my ability to hate kicked in. Because I actually think that this might have been after he had nearly unalived me by choking me. Because like that was actually when my ability to hate had kicked in. And this was just the beginning of the hatred developing for my mother. And I think I even mentioned it to her later on, and it was denied or like ignored. I don't know. But yeah, that was that was the first instance. And then there was another instance where like she was, you know what? Yeah. I'm not gonna start this over again, I think. No, I'm not gonna start it over because I'm now losing my train of thought, and I'm gonna just leave it in because authenticity. Fuck it. I'm just gonna do a part two. Because this always happens when I actually get to talk about it because I've held this shit in for I'm 31 and this happened when I was a young kid. I'm just gonna say 31 years because I'm not doing the damn math because I don't remember exactly how old I was when everything happened. So yeah, that's the end. I'll just start over at a part two.